you very much, Shaheen. That was the wrong thing to do, was to burgle your house. I think they finally did that last bit, isn't it? No, it's great to see what we call a positive anger, and I think this is what we have here. But that positive anger has to now really evolve into something that restores safety, for us feeling safe, but also restores our appreciation and our confidence in the police, and I think this is what it is. But it's always wrong to actually concentrate on the police, because we feel, I know the term is the people that are servants to two masters, and we have to remember that the police are servants to two masters, us and whoever is funding them. So they have a difficult role to play, and I think it's important to actually address the other master before we address the police. So please file your questions in this direction. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we've been a victim ourselves, right? We had a very, very bad robbery. There was 6 people actually broke into the property at the same time, and they broke my son's arm, and they actually beat my wife up really, really badly. My son ended up in a paralysis for 6 months to overcome the problem. What I've got a question with is, and this is a fact by the way, when the police arrived, on the back door there was a bit of blood stain and the footmark of the people they robbed. I had a letter a week later from the police saying they exhausted all their avenues and they're not going to proceed any further. Now personally there's a fundamental problem here. Right? It's all right you're saying, oh, we got to do this and neighbour will. That means nothing. I think really there's a serious issue with the police. If there was a murder, I'm sure they will have got the guy. I personally asked, I said, look, there's a blood stain on the window when they smashed 3 doors at the same time. So it was an organised crime, definitely. And they took a lot of money, that's beside the point. They beat my wife up because she wouldn't open the safe, she didn't know the combination anyway. And for the police to say, after seeing all that, saying, well, how can you, a week later, say we exhausted all avenues? Well, they're not done enough, have they? I was asking why you don't have the footprint. It was very obvious. Why didn't you take the DNA from the blood sample? They didn't want to know. So if you don't catch these criminals, I can assure you, there's not hundreds of them. There's only so many of them. They are doing the same crime over and over again. We hear it. Of course, we have to do certain things. I've got a CCTV 24/7 since. I'm trying to put as much as possible, but unfortunately, there is something we ourselves, we can't rely on police, and I'm being very, very honest about this. There is something what we have to do, and one of the issues is, yes, we have to get together, we have to put a bit of money towards it, and try to secure the streets. Like I know a few football players, they got private security guy outside their house. Now I'm not saying I can afford to pay somebody 24/7, but if you get 10, 15, 20 of us, there will be some kind of security on the street. And I honestly think, I'm sorry, I know they are stretched badly, the police officers, whatever, but really we got to take some issues in our own hand and try to put our hand in our pocket and try to get some kind of security, because it's getting ridiculous, really. Somebody's going to get hurt sooner or later.
Okay. Let me just introduce myself. My name is John Evans. I'm the Neighbourhood Police Inspector and I've been since October last year. As a force, we've made a conscious decision to move back to have dedicated police inspectors in charge of certain areas, and that's been missing for a couple of years. I can't address individual cases. However, if you wait behind afterwards, I'll take your details and I'll look into that. Because if there is blood at a scene and there's footmarks, then we should, our scenes of crimes officers should be going there, getting a DNA profile, and then matching that against our database of DNA profiles. And a week isn't long enough to do that. So I will look at that as an individual case, I just can't address that at the moment. If I can just talk a little bit about burglaries and robberies, both of those are serious offences that GMP take seriously. I have been the victim of a burglary and I know how shocking that is. A person's home should be the place where they feel most secure. And to have that violated is a really, really nasty crime, and we do take it seriously. There is sometimes a perception of being under siege, and the fear of crime is sometimes just as bad as the crime itself, and we have to get things into perspective. Yes, there has been a rise in burglaries and street robberies over the last few years. It's not been huge, but it's in the press, and it has raised people's fear of it. Hale has traditionally experienced a raised level of burglaries because there are affluent people here who have worked hard and have got good things, and there are people who will always want to take those. We do recognise that, and we work hard to prevent and detect burglaries. We use predictive mapping that has won awards internationally that indicates where at a given day and a given time we can expect burglaries to happen. And all our patrols at the start of the day are given that information, and when they get downtime between incidents they will put themselves into that area. On top of that, we pulse those areas with proactive policing. So we've got our tactical vehicle crime unit, and they're the ones who go out looking for stolen cars, and they're very good at finding those and they're very good at arresting people. So they will come into those areas, they will work with us, and they will work with officers from adjoining districts. And here we get people from Cheshire, we get colleagues from Cheshire coming into the area as well. So although you don't always see a lot of policing activity, it tends to be overnight when you're not going to see it, but those patrols are there. And I can tell you, 3 days ago we arrested 2 burglars in Hale, in car stolen from sale. As they're being dealt with on a regular basis, on a weekly basis. We are arresting burglars, detecting and charging those burglars. But going back to the perception, there have been some really nasty offences recently. Burglaries that have moved into robberies. A burglary is when somebody comes into your house and takes something. A robbery is when they confront you in your house and use violence against you. And there were 2 of those very close to each other, and an attempted robbery shortly afterwards. Quite rightly, that makes people very, very nervous. And it's that perception that worries people. And as Ian said, you cannot let yourselves be cowed or be scared into changing your lives. I've gone back and checked, and in Hale and Bowden, since the beginning of the year, there have been 3 such incidents. Now in the whole of Trafford, there have been, since the beginning of the year, 400 burglaries and robberies. In Bowden, there have been 3. They were exceptionally nasty, they were exceptionally shocking, and the victims from those should not have to put up with that. The offenders for that need contempt. But for yourselves, you need to get it into perspective so you do not live in fear. Yes, there were nasty offences, they were scary offences, but they are not as common as you think or you perceive. Yes, burglaries occur. They occur all over Trafford, all over GMP. There's been a slight rise, but the force as a whole and the officers in Trafford are aware of that and are taking proactive measures to prevent those and to detect them. Now, before everyone goes, I think you've all registered and coming in doing email addresses. I will make sure that my email is sent out to all of you, so if you have got concerns, you've got my details, and you can contact me with individual concerns. Does that all make sense?
Excuse me.
But just we said at the beginning that by 2:30 Sir Graham Brady is going to leave. So what we don't want to happen is that we lose the opportunity to ask him himself questions and address that. We will have plenty of time to actually go through each case, etc. But just a question to Sir Graham Brady.
Okay, so I've been a resident of Hale Barnes for over 43 years. And I've just listened to what the officer said. But to my knowledge, I've never known it to be so rampant as it is now. So just saying we've had 3, and don't be alarmed that out of the 300 or whatever the number was for Trafford, unquestionably our area is being attacked at the moment by gangs, and they definitely seem to be organised. Every time we hear of an attack, not me please, every time we hear of an attack, they've got helicopters on, they've got weapons with them. I don't accept what you said. I think there's something more grave than.
We'll carry on with that. We'll carry on with that. Sorry. Yeah, I'll come back. Yeah.
Can I ask a question really related to what the government might be able to do, and it's to do with law? So I'll give you very briefly my own example, which is somebody came into my house, one looking story, took, as my father was saying, took my father's car and also my car keys. When we found out it was on the call, I had to go in for an emergency. I couldn't go. I had to call a colleague up to go to the hospital's emergency. Luckily, to be fair to police, they came instantly on the number recognition. They found their car on the motorway, tracked it down, caught the people. The killer issue is this: as they were going down the motorway, they threw something out the car, almost certainly my car keys. When they caught them, they said, "Oh, we just found the car." That apparently became joyriding and not burglary, or burglary. Yeah. I mean, with the best one in the world, it is very frustrating when you end up hearing a story like this. I mean, I know they're playing the game, and fair enough, what have you. But at a certain level, you just wonder, sometimes you don't feel the law is always on the side, and whether that can be addressed.
Point is true. Point is true. I think rather than having Sir Graham, unless you want to answer, is we actually get all the points, because I think it's important for him to hear us. And to be fair to everybody, I'm just going to limit to what you want to say.
Okay, so I would like to ask Sir Brady what the Conservative Party, which is the ruling party in Great Britain, going to do. Especially, I heard from senior police officer myself that there is a massive cut to the fund to the police officer or security in general. What the government going to do? Because they are doing, or their performance is perceived very badly. Thank you.
Shall I answer that? Yeah, very straightforward to answer. I think after the financial crisis, there was a significant reduction in police funding. And certainly conversations I've had over the years with senior police officers, have your ears, there were many who said for the first maybe 3 years or 4 years, it was quite manageable, and that some waste was being taken out of the system and that frontline capacity was maintained. I think it then went further than was sensible. That is what is being restored now. We've had an increase in police funding last year, this year and next year. Recruitment has started again, so numbers are going up again. But I absolutely endorse I think what lies behind your question. I think the numbers were cut too far, and that needs to be put right. I think there are other things that can be done as well. It's not just numbers. I think sometimes government, local government and national government, put expectations on the police, which sometimes are supplying deficiencies in other organisations. And I think that from my conversations with police officers, very often they find a lot of their time taken up backfilling for things where there are problems in other services. So I'm always very conscious. I think when I hear people saying, oh, the police didn't do this or that they should have done, and we probably all can agree that
I'm not blaming the police.
No, I agree.
I'm blaming the government because not funding the police properly.
Which
police officer doing a good job.
Which is exactly the point that I was there making. That it is sometimes not just direct funding of the police, sometimes it's expectations to do other things, whereas I think probably all of us would think that the first priority needs to be protecting the public from violence, from burglaries and so on. So I think we need to make sure that those pressures on diverting police resources to the wrong places as well.
So is there anything about reinstating the burglary units and stuff that the police used to have? So I know there is more recruitment, but addressing this concern that we have.
All I'd say, I think it's absolutely right that burglary is a rising priority for the police, but that's an operational matter. It would be wrong for the government to tell Greater Manchester Police how to organise its response to burglary. Obviously there is also the police commissioner, who is the mayor, who has a more direct responsibility for that. But I think it is it would be wrong for me to tell the police how to do their job.
We'll discuss that.
So I just come in there. You're next, yeah. Go for it.
Yeah, you have rightly highlighted that there has been rise in the burglary, and that's what the figures and the community has been crying for. And have you found and have you recognized what are the underlying causes, and have you done anything about it, and what are the lessons you have learned from this, and what are you going to do about it? You have not told about your plan. How are you going to tackle with that?
There will be a section for the police in today's talk, and I mean that would be okay. That would be a good one for them to do, because it's a huge question. When you've asked this, absolutely correct. It's huge. It's huge.
Mr. Brady, as I mentioned this morning, as I guess about the surveillance cameras and things, if you are able to look into this matter, I hope you will do this issue. Look a bit more surveillance cameras, video cameras, and performing analysis. I just want to get you understand.
You just speak up a bit.
Well, shall I repeat? I mean, this is the question whether more CCTV cameras might help. So you've got to be careful about where you position them, because people rightly expect some privacy to be maintained as well. But it can be part of the answer. It's a really local government responsibility to look at that. But I certainly think it can be part of the answer.
Can I make a suggestion? I mean, and you can shout me down. Obviously, Sir Graham is not going to be with us for just a few more minutes. If we have anything that want to address to him on personal issues, if we start the letter when you write to him on be safe, feel safe, he'll know that it is coming from this meeting, and I think it might get that little bit more attention.
I just have a comment actually. We are in a society now living where we fear more, where we want to install all the best CCTVs in the house, the best alarm system in the house. I think home should be the safest place for us. Locks should be more than enough for us to have, and that feeling we don't get. I think that is the concern. I mean, we feel secure at the borders, but we don't feel secure at our own home, and that is the underlying current about all this. I mean, you can spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds each house individually, but as a country together, I think we should have a no-nonsense tolerance about that. We're not going to accept anyone entering my house, and that's a given, and that's where we stand for. And that's what.
Can I be a devil's advocate?
Sorry?
Can I be a devil's advocate?
Yes.
I know it's a mosque, but I think I can be a devil's advocate. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. How much policing would it take for you to feel safe? You don't have to answer that, but just keep that thought in your mind. Okay.
This is one question regarding the situation that we're in since the crashes and events happened. And obviously that's caused a lot of concern among the communities across the whole UK. And I would like to have just some comment from Mr. Sir Graham Brady about the government policies and specifically how it relates to the policing in the local neighbourhoods.
Yeah, well, delighted to. I was actually told when I came in not to start talking about that because it might be a diversion from the more immediate issues, but obviously an appalling tragedy and something which understandably causes, again, massive concern. And it's one of those things that I suppose the scale of a horror like that makes it impossible to say you shouldn't worry about it. It's so huge that it has to be taken very seriously, and the worry as well as the real risk. And the government has been, I think, in contact with mosques, and I know very much the police have been on a very regular basis as well to assess the risk and to try to make sure that there are suitable security provisions where they can be made. But I think probably at a national level, the most important contribution is actually the intelligence side of things and the monitoring of individuals or groups who might be considered a serious risk. And sadly, there are people who live amongst us in our country who do cause concern, and that needs the proper resourcing to follow it. And if it's perceived that there's a danger of it stepping over from being somebody who simply says unfortunate things or associates with other people who have certain views, but looks like there's a danger of it moving to a different level, then action has to be taken against those people. So I think there is quite a determined response at a national level to try to make sure that people's safety is maintained. I should say, I've run out of time, but what I wanted to say now, sir, I can come back. So if you're having another one of your meetings and you'd like me to come at some point, I'm always happy to come and hear more points.
Can I just
Same
ask,
way I'll-
Councillor, yeah.
Well, thank you for letting me speak, Councillor. As a local councillor, I often get people talking to me about the situation, and I have heard how worried everyone is. I mean, we had one case ourselves where my husband's car was opened at night. Fortunately, they didn't take it. Maybe it wasn't good enough for a burglar. But we had a meeting a few months ago, I think, and I was assured then that Trafford was one of the safest places to live in Greater Manchester, and that the south of the borough was much safer than the north of the borough. So we're really in the very safest place to be. And that was very comforting to hear. But something seems to have changed since then, over the past few months. And I don't know about the rest of you here, and I don't know whether it's possible to do with your funds and your staffing and anything, but what would make me feel much safer and much happier would be if I could occasionally see a policeman in the streets, see the old-fashioned bobbies on the beat, either, as I said, walking on the beat or driving around maybe slowly in the cars, looking. In other words, is there any way in which you could have a more visible police presence in the streets? Because I think that would be very comforting.
Obviously, we're trying to stick to an agenda. That would be covered. There will be a period of time where our police colleagues will actually address these. It's up to you now, because I know there's a lot of stories that need to be told. Do you want to hear an answer to that, which may come later anyway, or do you want the stories to be told now?
Can I just give one general point?
Yeah.
To complete in general. Take on board what you said earlier on, that our area is definitely under attack. And what's been revealed really to us in the past few months is there's so much going on. Drug dealing, gangs, burglaries, robberies, attacks. We need some action to take place.
That's the point of today, by the way. No, absolutely.
But it's not a question of the crime's going in generally. Just because we're in an affluent area, a suburban area with houses that are spread out and not high in number in terms of number
your feelings are not
our area
actually general.
needs a strategy. The area needs a strategy to attack crime. So not just react to crime, to proactively attack crime.
That hopefully, I don't want to let anybody sort of, just leave and sort of feel like they're not being fulfilled. Part of what
I
we're
will
going
come back
to
to it because that it is some perception, and that's why I just want to address that with you. And that's quite important one, and it's what I think we need to work on going forward about how we do attack that crime and how we make sure that you feel safe in your areas.
It's about other activities going on.
we don't